In this video, we'll show you a typical day in the life of Queen Anne Boleyn would have been filled with a variety of duties and activities, ranging from her personal routine to her significant political responsibilities. But before we begin, don't forget to like and subscribe to help us grow our channel. Daily routine and social life. Anne's day began early, with her ladies-in-waiting assisting her in dressing and preparing for the day. Her morning would include a light breakfast and attending Mass. Socially, Anne was known for her elegance and participation in court life. She engaged in leisure activities such as falconry, archery, horseback riding, and walking in the gardens. It is known that Royal and the Queen attended the jousting event. Based on historical accounts, Anne Boleyn was not present when Henry VIII had his famous jousting accident in January 1536. The event was a jousting tournament at Greenwich Palace. While she was not there to witness the accident, she was informed of her husband's condition and was reportedly so distraught that she suffered a miscarriage of a male child a few days later. The jousting accident is a significant event in Henry's life and reign, as many historians believe it may have contributed to his later paranoia and cruel behavior. However, there is no evidence to suggest that Henry VIII blamed Anne Boleyn for the accident itself. The subsequent miscarriage, which was a devastating blow to the couple's hopes for a male heir, is what ultimately sealed Anne's fate and led to her downfall a few months later. As queen, she also presided over and organized many courtly events, including banquets, dances, masques, and gambling parties. Anne was a patron of the arts and literature, and she spent time reading and discussing religious philosophy, often with King Henry VIII and members of her household. Anne Boleyn's religious beliefs and her intellectual circle were a significant part of her identity and influence at court. It's a complex topic because she existed during a time when the lines between Catholic and Protestant were not as clearly defined as they would become later. Don't forget to like and subscribe to help us grow our channel. Anne's religious philosophy. Her beliefs are best described as reformist Catholic or evangelical. She was not a Protestant in the way we think of it today, like a follower of Martin Luther or John Calvin, as she continued to hold many traditional Catholic beliefs, such as the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist and the importance of good works. However, she was deeply committed to reforming the Church from within. Her core beliefs and practices included the supremacy of the Bible. Anne believed that all people, not just priests, should be able to read the Bible in their own language. She actively supported the translation of the Bible into English, a major tenet of the early Reformation. A personal relationship with God. She was influenced by a movement of Christian humanism, particularly from France, that emphasized personal piety and a direct connection to God through Scripture, rather than through the elaborate rituals and intermediaries of the Catholic Church. A rejection of superstition. Anne was critical of what she saw as abuses and superstitions within the Church, such as the veneration of relics like the supposed foreskin of Jesus, which was claimed by multiple churches, and the practice of selling indulgences. Who she discussed religion with. Anne was a highly educated and influential woman who surrounded herself with like-minded individuals. She used her position and personal funds to support and promote religious reform. The people she discussed religious philosophy with included her brother, George Boleyn, a diplomat with reformist sympathies. George was a key figure in her religious circle. He reportedly smuggled banned religious texts from the continent for her. Marguerite of Navarre. Anne spent time at the French court, where she was influenced by Marguerite of Navarre, the sister of King Francis I. Marguerite was a prominent Christian humanist and a patron of reformers. This is where Anne was first exposed to and embraced new religious ideas. Thomas Cranmer. Anne was a great patron of Thomas Cranmer, a scholar with evangelical leanings. She played a direct role in his appointment as Archbishop of Canterbury. a position he used to advance the English Reformation. Cranmer was a key figure in establishing the Church of England and was a close ally of Anne. Don't forget to like and subscribe to help us grow our channel. Thomas Cromwell. Although their relationship eventually soured, Anne and Thomas Cromwell initially worked together on the project of religious reform. Cromwell, a key advisor to Henry VIII, was a reformer who helped bring about the dissolution of the monasteries. Henry VIII. Anne had a significant influence on the king's religious views. She gave him a copy of William Tyndale's book, The Obedience of a Christian Man, which argued that the king, not the Pope, should be the supreme authority within his own realm. This idea was a cornerstone of Henry's decision to break with Rome. While Henry was never a committed Protestant, Anne's discussions with him provided the intellectual justification for the English Reformation. A household and chaplains. Anne filled her household with evangelical chaplains and used her influence to promote reform-minded bishops. She encouraged her ladies-in-waiting to read the Bible in English and engaged in charitable activities that reflected her reformist ideals. In summary, Anne Boleyn's religious views were a blend of traditional piety and a desire for radical reform. She was a key figure in the intellectual and political circles that fostered the English Reformation, and she used her influence to support the very men who would change the course of England's religious history. She also used her time for charitable work, such as sewing clothing for the poor with her ladies-in-waiting. Don't forget to like and subscribe to help us grow our channel. Queenly responsibilities and political intrigue. Beyond her social life, Anne held substantial influence and responsibilities as queen consort. She was a patron and landowner, with people seeking her support and intervention through petitions. She actively supported religious reform and appointed reform-minded bishops. Anne also had a role in foreign policy, even before becoming queen, as she helped forge an alliance with France. Anne Boleyn helped forge an alliance with France, primarily through her personal relationship with King Francis I and her French education and cultural background. Her presence at Henry VIII's court, particularly during a time of tension with the Holy Roman Empire, was a significant factor in shaping England's foreign policy. French connections. Anne's early life in France, where she served in the household of Queen Claude, gave her a deep understanding of French culture, politics, and courtly etiquette. She was a Francophile, fluent in the language and well-versed in French tastes and fashion. This background made her an ideal person to help build a bridge between the two rival nations. Her family also had a history of diplomatic ties with France. Her father, Thomas Boleyn, was a respected diplomat who served as the English ambassador to the French court. Calais Summit 1532. The most direct way Anne helped secure the alliance was through the Calais Summit in October 1532. At this meeting, Henry VIII and King Francis I met to discuss a formal alliance and present Anne to the French king as Henry's future wife. By this point, Henry's quest for an annulment from Catherine of Aragon had put him at odds with the Holy Roman Emperor, Charles V, Catherine's nephew. To counter Charles V's influence and gain support for his marriage to Anne, Henry needed Francis I as an ally. Anne's presence at the summit was crucial as it was intended to legitimize her as Henry's queen in the eyes of a major European power. While the meeting didn't fully resolve all diplomatic tensions, it was a public declaration of the bond between Henry and Anne and a symbolic step towards an Anglo-French alliance. Anne was given the title of Marquis of Pembroke to elevate her status and ensure she would be received with the proper honours at the French court, which she ultimately was by King Francis himself. The alliance was essential because it provided Henry with diplomatic leverage against the Pope and Charles V, paving the way for the English Reformation. She used her position to protect and promote evangelicals and those who wished to study the scriptures, and she reportedly used her influence to help release imprisoned individuals and rescue refugees. While she did not act as a regent, she was informed on both domestic and foreign policy, and was not afraid to express her opinions to the king. Her status as queen also required her to manage her own household and those of her ladies-in-waiting, ensuring they were dressed fashionably in the latest French styles. Her relationship with King Henry VIII was at the center of the political intrigue that surrounded her. The king's desire to marry Anne led to the English Reformation and the break with the Roman Catholic Church. Don't forget to like and subscribe to help us grow our channel. The king's desire to marry Anne Boleyn was a key catalyst for the English Reformation, but it was not a simple, one-to-one cause and effect relationship. It was a highly complex issue with deep political, religious, and personal motivations. Here's a breakdown of the complicating factors. The great matter, and the lack of a male heir. The central problem was not just Henry's infatuation with Anne, but his desperate need for a male heir. His first wife, Catherine of Aragon, had only given him one surviving child, a daughter, Mary. The Tudor dynasty was new and fragile, and Henry feared that a female ruler would plunge England back into a civil war like the Wars of the Roses. He became convinced that his marriage to Catherine was blighted in the eyes of God, a punishment for marrying his deceased brother's wife, a union forbidden in the Old Testament. This great matter was his primary concern. Anne Boleyn was the specific reason he needed an annulment, but the drive for a male heir was the underlying force. The papal problem. Henry's solution was to have his marriage to Catherine annulled by the Pope. However, this was incredibly complicated for several reasons. Political pressure. At the time, Pope Clement VII was essentially a prisoner of the Holy Roman Emperor. Charles V was Catherine of Aragon's nephew, and a staunch Catholic. He had no intention of allowing the Pope to annul his aunt's marriage, and thus disgrace her and her daughter. The Pope was in an impossible position. Granting the annulment would enrage the most powerful monarch in Europe, while denying it would infuriate the King of England. Theological precedent. A previous Pope, Julius II, had granted a special dispensation for Henry to marry Catherine in the first place. For Clement VII to annul the marriage, he would have to admit that a previous pope had made a mistake, which would undermine the authority of the papacy. The influence of the Reformation. While Henry's initial motivation was personal, his pursuit of an annulment coincided with the wider European Protestant Reformation. The ideas of Martin Luther and others were circulating in England, challenging the Pope's authority and emphasizing the supremacy of Scripture. Anne Boleyn and her intellectual circle were deeply influenced by these reformist ideas. Anne herself owned and read banned books and encouraged the spread of the English Bible. This provided Henry with an intellectual and theological justification for his actions. Thomas Cranmer. Henry appointed Thomas Cranmer, a reform-minded cleric and a supporter of Anne, as Archbishop of Canterbury. Cranmer was a key player in the English Reformation and was instrumental in orchestrating the break with Rome. Thomas Cromwell. Henry's chief minister, Thomas Cromwell, was a brilliant and ruthless reformer who saw the break with Rome as a way to consolidate royal power and fill the treasury through the dissolution of the monasteries. Don't forget to like and subscribe to help us grow our channel, The King's Growing Power. Henry was not just a lovesick monarch. He was a powerful and ambitious king who resented any external authority over his kingdom. The Pope's refusal to grant his annulment was a direct challenge to his authority. Henry saw it as an opportunity to assert his absolute control over both state and church in England. He had the support of Parliament, which passed a series of laws culminating in the Act of Supremacy of 1534, which declared Henry the supreme head of the Church of England. In summary, Anne Boleyn's relationship with Henry VIII was the specific trigger, but the English Reformation was the result of a convergence of factors. Henry's desperate need for a legitimate male heir, the Pope's political entanglement, the growing influence of Protestant ideas, and Henry's own ambition for absolute power. The break with Rome was a political solution to a personal and dynastic problem, but it set in motion a profound religious transformation that reshaped England forever. This created many enemies for Anne, and she was the target of both court gossip and public anger. Ultimately, the political climate, her failure to produce a male heir, and Henry's shifting affections led to her downfall and execution on charges of adultery and treason. Don't forget to like and subscribe to help us grow our channel. Thank you for watching, and ring that bell to receive notification on new videos.